Hey everybody, welcome back to Baldur's Gate 3, and today we're talking about the top 10 items for any build for Act 1. So, Act 1, of course, the start of the game, generally between levels 1 through 6. If you're really careful with how you do things and you're really good at, getting experience, you can make it to level 7, but for the most part, most people end Act 1 at about level 5 or 6. Within Act 1, there are quite a few items that are great for certain builds, but there's a lot of items that are just good for any character. It doesn't matter what build you're using, as long as you are A, in a party, and B, trying to survive. These items are going to be very useful for any party composition. There's a couple of weapons, a couple of rings, a couple of amulets, and a couple of gloves and boots. So I'm trying to make this as diverse as possible. But we're going to start with the weapons. Now, item number 1, pretty simple, Herald the Crossbow. So I know not everybody's going to be able to use a two-handed heavy crossbow, but any build that can use a two-handed heavy crossbow is going to find a use for this weapon. Now, we're not going to showcase the weapons in this. I want to try and make this video as quick as possible, but I want to show what each weapon does, why it's useful, and where to get it. So Herald, like I said, heavy crossbow. It has I'd say one of the best abilities of any ranged weapon for Act 1 and Act 2. In fact, I have, my characters that are in Act 3 and beyond still use this heavy crossbow. So Heraldish Doom. When you deal damage to a target with a ranged weapon, it must succeed a charisma saving throw or be baned for 2 turns. It also carries a weapon enchantment plus one. You also get brace, which you can kind of just stand still and roll the damage twice and use the highest result. Really, really useful. You get that back at a short rest, so it's a great way to open up combat, especially in, like, my case, I use it for a ranger rogue. You're going to get that advantage. You're going to be able to deal the most damage, especially if you hit with a crit. So it's very useful, but the baned part of it is the best part. So, of course, Bane gives that person that takes it a 1d4 penalty to attack rolls and saving throws. That means anytime it attacks your characters, the percentage is going to be lower. Anytime your characters do something that requires a dex save, wisdom save, charisma save, you're going to see them fail it more often. And that comes in huge when you're talking about, like, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Vicious Mockeries, Hold Person, Hold Monster, anything that's going to require them to do a saving throw, including your Chromatic Orbs if you're using like a Tempest Cleric build. Your Wizard, you're doing a Fireball. Well, that's going to stop them from being able to dodge that damage. So this weapon really has a lot of uses. And if you're using, say, like a Ranger Rogue or a Fighter or a Paladin, somebody who gets multiple attacks per turn, and you can hit multiple enemies, you can bane multiple enemies. So, plenty of uses. Really strong weapon, of course, with a weapon enchantment +1. You get a +1 bonus to attack rolls and +1 bonus damage. So, starting out, it does a ton of damage. Now, where you get this is Joaquin's Rest. Of course, you have to find the Zentarum. And spoilers here, you find them, you have to find their shipment, which is being held captive by the Gnolls a short ways away. You bring the box to them unopened, and they will give you Herald. You can get this, honestly, I think the earliest I have been able to get it, because the Gnolls fight is kind of rough, is level 3. But from level 3 on, you have a +1 blue weapon with an amazing, amazing skill. So, Herald's number 1. Number 2, I'm actually using this weapon on the same Ranger Rogue that's using Herald, because it's an amazing weapon, and it's a good thing for a lot of characters because it's a long sword. A lot of characters can use it. It's finesse and it's versatile. So you can use it for a good long while, honestly, very far through the game. But it does 6 to 15 damage. It's the Fowler Eluve. It has a weapon enchantment +1. It increases your performance. So if you're using the party's face, like a bard, or any charisma character. My guy isn't even charisma based, but occasionally it comes in handy. But the big ticket item here is this Fowler Alluve, the Fowler Alluve melody. So you have two options. You have Sing or Shriek. Sing basically is like an aura around that character that's holding Fowler Alluve that blesses anyone in the area. Very, very powerful. It's a free bless. Of course, you get it once per short rest, but really, that's when you need it. Shriek is kind of the exact opposite effect, and it works really well with like the having Herald, because it banes anyone who steps into that area of effect and increases the amount of damage that gets done to them. Whenever they're hit, they take an extra 1 to 4 thunder damage each time they're hit. So not only have they have a harder time getting hit, fail their saving throws more often, they also take 1 to 4 thunder damage every time they're hit. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And it brings so much extra damage, especially if you're doing AoE attacks. You've got, someone who's constantly able to hit multiple enemies at a time. You're just piling on damage. So really, I can't sing its praises enough. It can sing for you, really. But on a short rest for an action, there's no reason not to use it. You'll know when you want to use it when you have a hard time getting your hits in because you need like a bless effect. That's when you want to use Sing. If you know the enemies are going to be hitting you for harder and you know that you can hit them and want to do extra damage to wear them down quicker, Shriek. You have options, and it's just insanely powerful. So now Fowler Alluve you actually get in the Underdark. And give me a moment and I'll actually show you where you get that. Okay, so I don't want to show off too many things about, where to get the items. I don't want to do too many spoilers. Of course, there's probably going to be spoilers in this video. There's no way around that. But so when you're in the Underdark right here, Selûnite Outpost, it's where you enter the Underdark if you're following like the main story and not looking for like the extra ways in. But this is probably a lot of people will find this way before they find any of the other ways. But it's right over here on the side. So there's you'll see it sticking out of this stone right here. You have to do a couple of checks, depending on what character you have. Certain characters have, additional like bonuses to the checks. But if you pull it loose from the stone, you get the sword and it's yours, nothing else needed. To be as powerful as it is, this is an amazing, amazing get this early in the game. You can get this, if you're careful, you can get this as early as like level 2. Depending on your character and how you built it. I've come down here really early on just to get this item. I suggest trying to come down here at level 3 because there are some pretty rough enemies in the area. But beyond that, get it as early as you can and you're going to use it for a very long time. Okay, so on to our amulets, right? This item is pretty simple. Amulet of Misty Step, okay? Everybody can use Misty Step. It's one of the most useful movement abilities there is. I mean, easily, bar none. Because it doesn't provoke opportunity attacks, and it teleports you wherever you can see. So within a certain range, but for the most part, wherever you can see, you can get there. The traversal ability of this alone is fantastic. You can get to places, especially with ranged fighters, with your magic casters. You can get them out of harm's way so quickly and so easily. Granted, you can only use this once per short rest, but still, it's a bonus action, which means you can hit and then run. And it can get you out of some really tight spots. Anyone can use it. It doesn't require any special skills or abilities. It is a simply put it on, equip it, and go wherever you need to go. So it's actually not even that hard to find, much like the Fowler Alluve. It's really easy to get to. You can probably get here as early as level 2. You get to the Defiled Temple, which is, where you actually start in the Selûnite Outpost. Or Selûnite. I keep saying Selenite. It's Selûnite Outpost. So it's right here. When you first come in, there, you'll go into the, it's almost like a little jail cell here. And then you've got to pass a perception or investigation check to see the stone wall door here. It's like a secret door, but you open it up. On the other side, there is a gilded chest right here, or an opulent chest. Open it up, and it's in there. Actually, take that back. I'm pretty sure it's in here. But that's another thing you can get is right over here. There's a chest. But go to chest right here. Amulet of Misty Step. Sorry, it's been a minute since I got this thing. Couldn't remember which one it was in, but it's actually in a gilded chest. That part I do remember. So, simple item. Really useful. A lot more useful than a lot of people think. I keep it on at least one character, probably through the entirety of Act 1. Partially through Act 2, because really good amulets for, any build is actually hard to come by. If you keep it in your inventory, you'll always have it for when you need it. So, it's a little tip there. Okay, so the next item on the list is kind of a maybe item. I'm putting it on the list because it is insanely useful for every build. You're never going to come across a party composition. You're never going to come across a build that cannot use this in some way or another if you don't have another way to do it. So for all of the super useful cantrips out there, Speak with Dead, Animal Friendship, Guidance in this case, there are items that can do that for you. And in this case, it allows you to consistently use Guidance whenever you need it for any situation, which means anytime you're wanting, just if you're, there's traps ahead, cast Guidance. If you're wanting to separate your party out and you have like a thief character like this one, put that pendant on there, the silver pendant, put it on there, and you'll be able to cast Guidance for any of your dex checks, for any of your, your simple abilities that can benefit from Guidance. That includes stealth. It includes, like I said, dex checks, sleight of hand. It includes, your perception, your investigation, your nature, and all of that. So it's always useful. And it's super easy to get early on. In fact, you can get it, I'd say, almost as soon as you enter the game.
Can't give up now.
So if you look, the Emerald Grove environs is right here. And this is where you start, right? So, of course, everybody knows Emerald Grove. It's basically the basic beginning. But you're right here. Now, most people know about this, but this is one of those items. It's so good I don't want to pass up the opportunity to tell people about it if they haven't found it yet. So, you go all the way up here. Oh. Okay, there, it doesn't take long. There's a ladder that goes up. And right here, there's a skeleton on the ground. Most people see this treasure chest up here and get kind of, oh, treasure chest, but there's a skeleton. And on that skeleton body is going to be the silver pendant that gives you Guidance. Super useful ability, super useful item. I keep it around, at least sitting in one character's inventory all the time. In this build, actually, with this party composition, I don't have anyone who can cast Guidance. This is my tactician run that I'm doing for YouTube. I don't have Guidance on anybody. I don't want to have to do one level in something just to get Guidance. This pendant has been invaluable. So the next item, I'm going to show you where to find it first, and then I'll show you what it does. So in the Goblin camp, right here, there is a gentleman over on the side. His name is Crusher. Crusher carries with him a very special ring. Let me kill Crusher, and I'll show you what his ring does. So once you kill Crusher, you're going to get his ring. And his ring, well, it's very small. His ring increases your movement speed by 3 meters. Now, I know what you're saying. You've got Long Strider for that. Well, this stacks with Long Strider. Well, what's movement speed important for? Movement speed is amazing on melee builds. It's amazing on caster builds. It's amazing just any time you're in battle, because being able to get to and get away from enemies is so much more important than you could realize. Because like in my tactician run, my solo run, being able to go in, hit an enemy, kill that enemy, and get far enough away that the other enemies can't get to me without dashing, thus wasting their action, is invaluable. Being able to do that controls the action economy, because if they're dashing and you're not, you're attacking when they're not. and that is an amazing thing. You have the ability to circle around, get to places, move up and down ladders and around and across, and they cannot. So using this with things like Long Strider boosts your movement so much more that they have to dash to keep up with you, and that right there is control. It's one of the best crowd control, enemy control abilities in the game, being able to control their action. And that's what you're doing with this. So keep it in mind, it's actually a lot more useful than a lot of people realize. Usually I keep it around until about Act 2 or 3, and then other rings start really coming into play. And there's other ways to control the action economy in battle. But for the first 2 acts, and really the entirety of Act 1, this thing is useful. The entirety of Act 2, you'll find some use for it if you don't have other items that fit for the builds you have. Act 3, you may want to start working your way out of this, but like I said, these are the items for Act 1. And this item is amazing for survivability early on. Next on our list is another green gemmed ring, the Caustic Band. This item doesn't seem like it does a lot. Your weapon attacks also deal 2 acid damage. I know, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I want you to think about how many times you're going to hit, especially for, your guys that are dual wielding. You're going to be hitting a ton. So if you've got like a fighter who's dual wielding or a ranger rogue who's dual wielding, you're going to be getting, especially once you hit about level 5, and if you go thief or you get those ones like action surge, that's 10, 12 damage right there added on. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but I want you to think in Act 1 and part of Act 2, this is going to come in real handy because enemies don't have a whole lot of health. If you're adding an extra 2 damage to attacks, you're adding, a good chunk. If you hit them twice, or, you've got someone who is like I said, dual wielding, that's 4 damage. Enemies are going to have, depending on what difficulty level you're at, the basic enemies are going to have like 15, 20 health. That's 1/10 of their health. So it's more than you realize. It doesn't seem like a lot, but in Act 1, any extra damage for just being you is amazing. The Caustic Band is also, it's an item you can buy. So in the Underdark, you're going to come across a particular lady who's selling items. She's asked you to find her husband, and she will sell you this item. It's not that expensive. By this point, you should have more than enough gold to obtain it. Put it on any of your guys who hits with weapons. As long as they don't have another item that's better, it's going to do you good. Plain and simple. If you get 10 hits in a single battle, regardless of who you're hitting, that's 20 damage. 20 damage is more damage than you're going to hit one time, so you're basically getting an extra hit for every 5 or 6 hits. I know, like I said, it doesn't seem like a lot, but you'd be amazed at how much this actually helps. Because sometimes you get the enemy down to just 1 HP, you're going to wish you had this on. So, Caustic Band, really useful in Act 1. Now, this next item, I'm going to be really, really surprised if you don't know about them yet. It's one of the first items you can buy that's going to last you forever. In actuality, it'll probably get you through to like Act 2 or 3. But the Gloves of Missile Snaring are just amazing. For any Dex character, they're going to be really, really useful. For any person who's not a Dex user, they're still going to be useful. And the reason for that is, not only does it reduce damage based on your Dex modifier, it does an automatic reduction of 1d10 regardless of your dexterity. So, yes, sometimes you're going to roll a 1, sometimes you're going to roll a 5, sometimes you'll roll a 10. Any damage reduction is damage reduction. You can't go wrong with that. But if you have a high dexterity character, like a ranger in this case, or you're using a fighter that's more dex based, or anyone that has dexterity, put these on them. They don't have to worry about any real like ranged attacks at that point. Now somebody hits like 4 and 5 times, that's going to be different, but For instance, there's some enemies that have multiple attacks early on, even in Act 1. I can think of the gnolls in particular. They'll just waylay a character with arrows if they end up killing somebody. And this right here can be the difference between getting absolutely wrecked and surviving with enough health to heal yourself and heal a party member. So I cannot overstate the usefulness of the gloves of missile snaring in Act 1. In Act 1 alone, and if we talked about other acts, it'd be even more useful. But it's really easy to get. So when you get to the Emerald Grove, Aaron, the first merchant you meet, the little halfling merchant, he sells them. Now, granted, they're a little expensive. I think they're like 400 gold. But honestly, sell everything you have to sell, pickpocket if necessary, but sell everything you have to sell to be able to get these gloves. You will use them for the entirety of Act 1 and probably beyond. One of the easiest to get items in the entire game that has such a huge usefulness for as long as it does. This next item, I'm kind of on the fence about, but I understand why it's useful because I can't possibly speak about Herald without talking about the Gloves of Power. So they carry with them Absolute Bane on a hit with a weapon attack, possibly inflict a minus 1d4 penalty to the target's attack rolls and saving throws, and also gives you sleight of hand plus 1. Generally speaking, you want to put this on your like your rogue character or your whoever it is. It's like your lock picker and that thing, and it's going to really help them out in, you know, for one, basically baning enemies just like Harold does, but also gives you that sleight of hand to help you with lock picking and pickpocketing and things of that nature. Now, the reason I'm on the fence about this item, and it's super useful if you when you get them, you use them through the entirety of Act 1, because there's very few gloves that are as useful as this in Act 1 that works for every build. So you're going to find that any character hits with a melee attack is going to, well, even any weapon attack, ranged or melee, will benefit from these gloves. The reason why I say that I'm on the fence is possibly inflict. It's terrible wording. I don't know what the percentage is, but I promise you, I rarely ever see it. I know it's weird. A lot of people say it procs for them all the time. I have it on this character. Honestly, maybe I don't notice it, but it doesn't proc a whole lot for me. So I need to do some testing to see what the percentage is, but it doesn't seem like it's a huge percentage. With that said, when it does proc, it makes a difference. So, you know, if you have it, use it. You can't go wrong with it. But this item, like I said, is a little on the fence. That's why it's not the worst item by far, and I'm not saying that because it's on the end of this list, it's any less useful than any other item on this list. It's just I am on the fence about this, but I understand why this item can be so useful for so long in this game. So when you get them, and you're going to get them, you can't not get these items unless you just don't loot enemies. You get it during the first big battle with the goblins when you first get to Emerald Grove. One of the goblins has it on his person. You're going to loot it when they die. So equip it, use it. When you find something better, switch it over. But you're probably going to use this item on at least one character throughout Act 1. So that's the Gloves of Power. So the last item. I actually had another item I was going to put on the list, and I decided against it. I actually started talking about it and changed my mind halfway through because I could not justify it being on this list. This item, however, you need this item for the rest of the game. But having it right now is absolutely amazing and is... I can't overstate the usefulness of Mass Healing Word. So there's a couple of items in this game that are, I think, a tad bit overpowered to be in Act 1. This is one of them. So Healing Word, you already know what that does. It allows you to choose one party member within a certain distance and heal them. Of course, the heal's pretty weak. You get like 6 to 9, of course, 1d4 plus 5. But you can do it from a distance, and it can pull a party member up from the dead. Well, from being knocked out. It can't pull them up from being dead. But if they're knocked out and they're making saving throws, this will bring them up automatically, even if you can't get to them, like you're going to provoke opportunity attacks, or you just can't get to them for whatever reason. This is what you use. You can put it on, like you see here. I have it on a Paladin Warlock. Honestly, you could use it on anything. You could use it on a Ranger Rogue. You can use it on a fighter. Any character can use this and bring up dead teammates and save the day. But then, if that wasn't enough, every long rest, you get Mass Healing Word. Mass Healing Word hits everybody. Up to 6 allies. They have to be all kind of compacted around, and it's a pretty good distance. It's 18 meters, which, I mean, is a pretty decent sized distance. But it heals up to 6 allies for that 6 to 9 healing, so it's not like a huge amount. But let's say you're in a battle and you just got hit hard by something. It could be anything. I've had several times where just the luck of the dice rolls from the enemies has taken out 2 of my heavy hitters. Or it's taken out, my healer or my crowd control person. An errant arrow has taken out my wizard. Whatever the case may be. Mass Healing Word is going to bring all of them back. Going to give everybody a little bit of health. And 6 to 9 healing, it's really in Act 1 can make a huge difference in whether or not you survive. Some enemies can only do that much. And some enemies can do maybe double that, but you're not going to see a lot more than that unless enemies are doing things like smiting or they're double hitting, those kind of things. But like standard attacks don't do a lot more than that in Act 1. Even on Tactician, you're not getting hit harder than 15 in most cases. Now, there's some cases where you are, but for the most part, this right here is a very good heal for Act 1 and beyond because it can bring up multiple party members. And that's 2 heals for free every long rest. Granted, this long rest, short rest would be so overpowered, it would be like a god item. But in this case, once per long rest is still amazingly useful. And once you've used both parts of it, you can just take it off and put something else on. Like the Amulet of Misty Step. You have options. But this item is amazing. The fun part is it's sold by a merchant. It's not even something you have to find. The same merchant that sells you the Caustic Band sells you the Amulet of Restoration. So down in the Underdark, you'll come across the lady once again. She's in the Myconid. Saying that so wrong. Had to look it up. The Myconid colony. There is a little. I'm pretty sure she's halfling. If she's a gnome, I don't remember, but she's there looking for her husband, just like before, like I said. And she'll sell you this in the Caustic Band. Pick them up. Can't go wrong with them. She sells a couple of other items. Honestly, depending on your build, she's got some stuff that could be really useful. But this is the last item on this list, and I wanted to add this to the list, but I kind of ran out of items. So now I'm throwing it on there, and I promise you it is not the weakest of the bunch. But thank y'all so much for joining. Thank you so much for, just listening to me ramble about some really cool items from Act 1. These items, like I said, are useful for any build. I'm probably going to do some that are specific build related for Act 1, and I want to do specific builds built for Act 1. I think it's really important, especially in Act 1, to help people figure out how to get through it, because Act 1 can be kind of a bear if you've never played these kind of games before. So, anyway, thank you so much. Definitely, like I say every time, like, comment, subscribe down below. And I will definitely see you next time. My Tactician run should be coming soon. I'm really excited for that. Honestly, this is where I showcase a lot of the items, because I've gotten just about all of these on my Tactician run. I've kind of filtered them around. But thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and take care.